"What do you mean we've had 6 people quit from the same warehouse in 1 month?" Xavier Collins set his coffee down hard enough to spill it. His assistant, Devin, didn't flinch. "Shipping floor at the Westgate facility. Turnover's been bad. Manager says it's because of laziness." "But HR reports say otherwise." Xavier leaned back, rubbing his jaw. 10 years ago, he bought the struggling logistics company from a retiring owner with a handshake and a loan. It had grown into 10 warehouses across the state. He used to know every floor, every face. Now, he hadn't stepped foot in Westgate in over 3 years. "How long's the floor supervisor been there?" he asked. "About a year, name's Grant, promoted from inside." "Has he ever met me?" Devin shook his head. "Doubt it. He came in after you stopped making rounds." Xavier looked out the window. He hated relying on second-hand reports. "Set it up. I want to go in as a floor trainee." Devin raised an eyebrow. "You sure?" "I need to see it for myself. No cameras, no heads up. Just me, a fake name, and a pair of steel toe boots." 2 days later, Xavier walked through the back door of the Westgate facility wearing a company-issued uniform with a borrowed name tag, Troy. His beard was fuller now, his hair buzzed shorter. Glasses added a final touch. If anyone had seen his photo on the company website, they wouldn't recognize him. The warehouse buzzed with movement boxes flying down conveyors, forklifts humming past. The air smelled like cardboard and sweat. A woman with a clipboard pointed him toward the supervisor's office. Grant was young, maybe 30, with a tight haircut and a clipboard he seemed surgically attached to. "All right, Troy," he said without looking up. "You're shadowing Jalen today. Don't slow him down." Jalen, a tall guy with kind eyes, gave Xavier a quick nod. "Come on, man, I'll show you the ropes." For the next 3 hours, Xavier loaded trucks, scanned labels, and broke a sweat trying to keep up. Jalen moved fast but never rushed. He double-checked every step, even when others didn't. "You always this careful?" Xavier asked during a quick sip of water. Jalen smiled. "Yeah, if something goes out wrong, it's on us. I'd rather be right than fast." At the start of the lunch break, Jalen led him outside toward the picnic tables, but they didn't make it far. "Jalen," Grant's voice cut through the air. "What time is it?" Jalen checked his watch. 12:03. "Lunch started at 12. That's 3 minutes late." "We were finishing a scan. I don't want to hear it. That's your second late break this week," Grant snapped. "You're done." "Turn in your badge." Xavier froze. "Wait, what?" Jalen blinked. "You're firing me for 3 minutes." Grant didn't even look shaken. "We run tight. You know the rules." Jalen stood silent, his jaw clenched. He took off his badge, handed it over, and walked toward the exit without a word. Xavier's stomach twisted. That wasn't discipline. That was cruelty. Back inside, there was tension in the air. People kept their heads down. Xavier watched as another girl, Lee, checked her watch 3 times before grabbing her lunch. She looked exhausted. He spent the rest of the day working quietly, watching Grant bark orders and nitpick mistakes. No encouragement, no praise, just constant pressure. Later, near the end of the shift, Xavier overheard 2 workers whispering near the lockers. "They fired Alia last week for the same thing," one said. "Break was 1 minute late. I timed it," the other replied. "I think he's trying to make people quit." That night, Xavier sat in his car and stared at the wheel. He felt disgusted and guilty. He had built this company to give people steady work, not to break them down. Somewhere along the way, he had lost touch. He looked at the warehouse again. Tomorrow, he'd come back. He wanted to see more, confirm what he felt. And then, he'd burn this rot out from the roots. Xavier pulled into the gravel lot the next morning just before dawn. The early shift change cast long shadows across the loading dock. He stepped out of his truck, stiff from yesterday's labor, and joined the line of workers waiting to badge in. No one said much. Eyes were tired, shoulders slouched. The atmosphere wasn't tense, it was flat, resigned. Inside, fluorescent lights flickered overhead as the day team checked their assignments posted on a corkboard near the break room door. Xavier's name, still Troy, was listed beside a new task: inbound scanning with a worker named Darnell. Darnell was lean and quiet, with calloused hands and a way of moving that suggested he was always calculating the next step. He gave Xavier a nod, then motioned toward the inbound dock. "You scan. I'll unload," Darnell said. "Stay sharp." Some of these boxes come mislabeled. As they worked, Darnell didn't say much, but he didn't need to. He worked fast, not recklessly, but like someone who had stopped expecting help. Xavier kept pace, learning quickly, occasionally glancing across the floor where Grant loomed near the main desk, flipping through a clipboard while sipping a can of energy drink. Mid-morning, a delivery truck backed into the bay with a loud hiss. Darnell gestured for Xavier to grab the scanner. As they opened the doors, a tower of poorly stacked crates leaned dangerously to one side. "Whoa, back up," Darnell said quickly, throwing his arm out to stop Xavier. "That's not strapped." The crates shifted. One toppled off the edge, slamming into the concrete with a thunderous crash. A corner split, spilling sealed electronics across the bay. Grant was there in seconds. "Who opened that door?" he barked. "I did," said Darnell, stepping forward. "You didn't check the manifest first." There was no manifest on the door. "And the load wasn't secured." "I don't care if it was stacked by a ghost," Grant snapped. "You open it, you own it." Xavier watched Darnell's jaw tighten. "I'll clean it up," Darnell said. "No," Grant replied, voice rising. "You'll write a statement." "Break's canceled." "We haven't had break yet," Xavier said carefully. Grant turned to him. "You want to join him?" Darnell picked up the fallen boxes in silence, his face unreadable. Xavier helped, scanning each item for damage. None of it was their fault. The load had clearly been stacked carelessly by whoever packed the truck. Later, during a restroom break, Xavier found Darnell washing his hands, staring at the mirror. "You ever report this stuff?" Xavier asked quietly. Darnell shook his head. "You think anyone listens?" "I've been here 8 months. They only hear what Grant writes in his reports." "You ever talk to anyone above him?" "Never seen anyone above him." Xavier dried his hands, watching Darnell's reflection. "Would you if you could?" Darnell met his eyes in the mirror. "If it meant someone to actually fix it?" "Yeah, in a heartbeat." Back on the floor, Xavier noticed a woman in her 50s, gray streaks in her braids, moving with a limp, trying to haul a pallet jack around a corner. She struggled to steer it, clearly in pain. "Need a hand?" he asked. She nodded gratefully. "Thanks, my knee's shot, but I can't afford time off." As they moved the load, she introduced herself. "Sandra, been here almost 7 years. 7? Xavier raised an eyebrow. She gave a tired smile. "Yeah. Before all the new policies came down." "What changed?" "They stopped caring if you got the job done right, just wanted it done fast. People started getting written up for nothing. One guy got written up for tying his shoe outside the marked zone." Xavier kept his tone light. "That sounds made up." "I wish it was." He helped her stack boxes for the next 10 minutes. When they were done, she patted his arm. "You're a good one, Troy. Don't let them wear you down." By noon, Xavier had seen enough to confirm what he'd suspected. The problem wasn't laziness. It wasn't worker performance. It was systemic fear. No one felt safe, not from mistakes, not from injury, not even from taking the time to do their job properly. That afternoon, a young woman named Celeste was flagged for a misscan. Xavier saw the whole thing. It wasn't her fault. The barcode had been smudged and the scanner misread it. Grant stormed over. "Third misscan this month, Celeste." She swallowed hard. "I double-checked it. I logged the correction." "I didn't see a correction on the report. I sent it to quality." "Then they didn't log it." "That's on you. I can get the timestamp. You're done." "What?" Her voice cracked. "Pack your things. Final check's already being written." Xavier stepped forward. "That's not right. I saw the scan. It was the label." Grant turned on him. "You want to go too?" Xavier didn't blink. "I want to know if you actually care what happened or if you're just collecting write-ups." Grant's lips twitched. "You don't speak for her." Celeste was frozen, hands shaking. "I'll go," she said quietly. "I'm tired anyway." When she walked out, Xavier followed her to the lot. She sat on a curb, head bowed, backpack in her lap. "I was trying," she said, not looking up. "I worked through lunch twice this week. I just wanted to get it right." "You did," Xavier said. She wiped at her eyes. Doesn't matter. He wanted me gone. Why? Because I asked for a shift change last month. My kids' school moved their schedule. He said if I couldn't commit, I shouldn't be here. Xavier stood there a moment, quiet. Then he offered her a card from his pocket, the only thing he'd brought with his real name on it. Hold on to this, he said. I might be able to help. She glanced at it, confused, then tucked it into her bag. That night, Xavier drove back to his office across town. He didn't go home. He didn't even take off his boots. He went straight to the HR archives and pulled every report filed from Westgate in the past 6 months. The pattern was clear. Write-ups spiked after Grant's promotion. Terminations for attitude, lateness, and non-compliance had doubled. Most of the names. Women, older employees, parents with schedule requests. He picked up his phone and called Devon. I'm pulling the trigger, Xavier said. Understood. What do you need? Tell all senior staff to clear their morning. I'm showing up at Westgate. As myself. Xavier stepped through the front doors of Westgate warehouse at exactly 8:30 the following morning, dressed in a tailored navy button-up and dark jeans. His work boots were still caked with dust from the floor. He didn't want to show up like some distant executive who had never touched a pallet jack. The receptionist looked up, confused at first, then her eyes widened. She began. Yes, Xavier said calmly. Let Grant know I'm here. Right now? She hesitated, then picked up the phone with shaky fingers. Xavier didn't wait. He walked past her through the security gate and onto the warehouse floor. The usual rhythm of the morning shift stuttered as workers paused mid-task, eyes following him. He nodded to a few familiar faces, Sandra, Darnell, Lee, but didn't stop. Grant emerged from his office, clipboard in hand, confusion wrinkling his brow. Can I help you? I'm Xavier Collins, he said, voice even but sharp at the edges. I own this company. The room froze. Grant's face drained of color. I didn't know you were coming. I didn't announce it. I've been working on your floor for the past 2 days. Grant opened his mouth, then shut it. His eyes flicked toward the side entrance as if weighing whether to walk or run. Let's talk in your office, Xavier said. Inside, the lighting was dimmer. The desk was cluttered with write-up slips, half-empty energy cans, and a stack of employee evaluations. Xavier closed the door behind him. You fired 3 people in 48 hours, Xavier began, taking a seat across from him. 1 for 3 minutes of overtime, 1 for a mislabeled box, and 1 for asking to adjust her shift. Grant's voice rose defensively. They were all documented infractions. Our handbook, stop. Xavier leaned forward. I've read every report you've filed since your promotion. You've terminated 15 employees in 6 months. That's more than the other 9 warehouses combined. I run a disciplined floor. No, you run it like a trap. People are terrified to breathe wrong. Xavier's voice dropped. And you've created that on purpose. Grant's hand twitched near his clipboard. I'm just trying to meet numbers. You set the benchmarks. No, Xavier said firmly. I set the standards. You chose how to meet them. You've created a toxic environment where people can't succeed, even when they're doing everything right. Grant's eyes narrowed. You expect people to work hard without pressure. You think they'll just rise to the occasion. I expect people to work hard when they're respected, Xavier replied. You've confused fear with leadership. There was a knock at the door. Devon stepped in. HR is ready in the conference room. Xavier stood. You're done here, Grant. Effective immediately. Grant's face flushed. You can't. I already did, Xavier said. Security will walk you out. Don't speak to anyone on your way. As Grant was escorted away, Xavier walked back onto the floor. The tension was thick. He climbed onto a low riser near the main conveyor and raised his voice just enough to carry. My name is Xavier Collins. I started this company 10 years ago with 3 trucks and a trailer. Some of you know that, most of you don't. That's on me. People gathered slowly, watching him with guarded expressions. I've spent the last 2 days working alongside you. I've seen the pressure you're under. I've seen what's been allowed to happen here. That ends today. No one spoke. A few exchanged glances. Sandra folded her arms, eyes narrowed with wary curiosity. Effective immediately, Grant is no longer with this company, Xavier continued. He abused his authority and we allowed it to go unchecked. That's also on me. I'm sorry. The silence broke with a few surprised murmurs. We're reviewing every termination from the last 6 months, Xavier said. Anyone who was let go unfairly will be contacted. If they still want to work here, they'll be offered reinstatement. Lee stepped forward. What about those of us who are still here? Nothing's changed for us yet. It will, Xavier said. Starting now, no one gets written up without a second manager reviewing the situation. Every disciplinary action will go through HR directly. And until we find a new site lead, I'll be here. Every day. Darnell, standing near the loading dock, raised a hand. Are we getting new staff? We're running short every shift. Yes, Xavier said. We're hiring immediately. Applications will be reviewed by HR, not just floor leads. And we're bringing in a temporary operations manager from Clearwater to help stabilize workflow. Celeste stepped into the room from the back. Her face was unreadable. She'd returned after Xavier called her the night before. Celeste's been rehired, Xavier said, nodding to her. Her termination was invalid. She starts back tomorrow. No one clapped, no one cheered. But for the first time people were listening. Xavier stepped down from the riser and approached Sandra. I know your knee's bothering you, he said quietly. You need medical leave, you'll get it, full pay, no retaliation. She studied him for a long moment, then gave a single nod. I'll believe it when I see it, she said. You will. He turned to Darnell next. You've been holding this place together, I noticed. Starting next week, you'll be training as shift lead. You'll report directly to me. Darnell blinked. Are you serious? Dead serious. I didn't think people like me got those kinds of offers. You earned it. That's all I care about. By the end of the day, Xavier had met one-on-one with every staff member on the floor. He didn't offer empty apologies. He asked questions. He listened. He wrote down what needed fixing. Outdated scanners, short staffed shifts, unsafe shelving near Dock 3 and the broken air vents in the break room. He didn't promise overnight change, but he made clear that silence was over. That evening, as the sun dipped low and the last truck pulled out of the bay, Xavier stood alone in the lot, watching the warehouse hum with a different kind of energy, not hope. Not yet, but something close, something honest, and that was enough to start. A week later, the atmosphere inside the Westgate facility had shifted, but not in some dramatic, overnight transformation, just enough to feel like something solid had cracked, and light was beginning to come through. The fear had dulled, replaced by a cautious alertness. People weren't smiling yet, but they were watching, waiting to see if the promises would hold. Xavier returned each day, not as a guest, not to oversee, but to work. The second shift started early that Monday, and by 6:30, he was already in the inbound dock, sleeves rolled up, moving crates alongside Darnell, who had stepped into his new role with quiet precision. He wasn't barking orders or trying to impress anyone. He just made sure people had what they needed, and when they didn't, he found a way to fix it. Label printers still jamming, he said, pulling Xavier aside between loads. I saw the maintenance log, still no response, 2 tickets submitted, no callback. All right, we'll escalate. If repairs don't happen by tomorrow, we replace the unit outright. Darnell nodded once, then went to check on the new hire, a 19-year-old named Mateo who was struggling with the strap loader. No one had raised their voice at him all morning. That was new. In the break room, Sandra sat with her leg propped on a low stool, a compression sleeve hugging her knee. She wasn't working the floor this week, doctor's orders, but she'd insisted on coming in to help with admin tasks while she healed. HR had approved the accommodation and Xavier made sure it stuck. She was sorting shift requests when Xavier dropped off a fresh batch of anonymous feedback forms. You think they'll be honest? She asked, glancing at the stack. They already are, Xavier replied. One said we need better airflow near the outbound dock. Another said supervisors should be trained on conflict resolution. Sandra raised an eyebrow. Conflict resolution. That's generous. Better than fire half the management, which was one of the others. She chuckled, then winced, shifting her leg. You're keeping your word so far, people notice. I'm not here to win points. I'm here because I should have never stopped showing up. She nodded once, then returned to the schedules. Well, don't stop now. By midweek, a regional HR rep named Alton arrived to begin formal interviews with employees who had been terminated or written up under questionable circumstances. Celeste met with him first. She emerged from the conference room with red eyes but a steadier posture. Xavier met her near the vending machines. You all right? He asked. I told him everything, she said. Not just what happened to me, what I saw happen to others. Some of it was worse. Xavier didn't press. He didn't need to. We'll do something about it, she nodded. I believe you now. Later that afternoon, Devon arrived with the first round of equipment upgrades. 2 new pallet jacks, a fresh printer, and replacement scanners. No one clapped, no one cheered, but the looks exchanged across the floor said enough. People noticed when tools showed up. It meant someone had listened. Xavier joined Lee during inventory sorting near the far wall, where the fluorescent tubes flickered like a nervous heartbeat. Still think I'm a plant? He asked, gently sliding a crate beside hers. I figured it out the minute you started asking questions no one else cared about, she said. Supervisors don't usually ask if we've had water. That's a low bar, it's the one we've had. They worked in silence for a few minutes, then she asked, what happens when you stop coming here? That depends on who I leave in charge. She set her scanner down. Don't leave anyone who thinks we're replaceable. I won't. That evening, Xavier met privately with a woman named Rita from the second shift. She'd submitted a formal complaint 2 days earlier, detailing how a former assistant supervisor had repeatedly made comments about her appearance remarks that had gone unchecked by Grant, even after she'd reported them. Was it documented? Xavier asked. I tried. HR said they'd look into it. Then I got rotated off his team. Who else knew? 3 others saw it happen. They were just afraid to speak up. Not anymore, Xavier said. We'll bring them in, and that man will never step foot in any of our facilities again. She exhaled slowly. I didn't think anyone cared. We didn't do enough before. That changes now. By the end of the week, 4 employees had been offered reinstatement after their terminations were reviewed and found unjustified. 2 of them accepted. The others had moved on but thanked Xavier for the gesture and for finally acknowledging what had happened. Grant's exit had created a leadership vacuum, but Xavier didn't rush to fill it. Instead, he rotated interim responsibilities among current staff, observing how people responded under pressure. Darnell continued to anchor the floor. Celeste, despite being back only a few days, was already helping train the newer hires. Sandra, still on medical leave, volunteered to lead onboarding for incoming recruits. They didn't need a new boss. They needed people who understood the difference between authority and responsibility. A new operations manager was named the following Thursday. Her name was Lynn Tran, transferred from Clearwater, where she'd led a similar turnaround 2 years prior. She met with each member of the team individually during her first shift, not in an office but on the floor. She asked what they needed, not what they could produce. Xavier left the warehouse late that Friday evening after walking the floor one last time. Most of the crew had already clocked out, and the hum of machinery had quieted to a low drone. As he reached the exit, he saw Mateo by the loading dock, practicing with the strap loader. Darnell stood nearby, offering quiet tips. You heading out? Darnell asked when he noticed Xavier. Yeah, Lynn's got the next stretch. You comfortable working with her? She listens, Darnell said. That's more than we've had in a long time. Xavier nodded. You're ready for the lead role full-time. We'll make it official Monday. Darnell blinked. You serious? Comes with a raise and a voice in weekly ops meetings. He looked down at his boots, then back up. I'll take it, but not to prove anything. Just to make sure the next kid doesn't get pushed out for asking questions. That's exactly why I want you in the role. They shook hands, no speeches, no ceremony. Xavier stepped outside into the fading light. The parking lot was mostly empty. A breeze moved across the asphalt, carrying the faint scent of cardboard and diesel. The warehouse wasn't perfect. It was still under pressure, still understaffed in places, still catching up on maintenance and morale. But the fear was gone. In its place was something slower, harder to earn, and infinitely more valuable: trust. And this time, Xavier wasn't planning to let go of it.